What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
I'm doing what we have done on every topic. So our goal is to be the government in 2 years. Everything we do is toward that goal, and hence we prepare rigorously every aspect of it. That includes who's going to be our candidates, what do we have to propose on every single topic, and one of those topics that are very important is the status of Quebec. Every aspects, we will make the best preparation possible. It has nothing to do with anticipating results. It's about being serious about the objectives you're pursuing. It's just that. And you've seen that on several other topics.
James Mennie is on the line over at the Montreal Gazette. That's Paul St. Pierre Plamondon, of course, leader of the PQ. What's going on about, Jim?
Well, here's the thing, about PSPP. He's talking about the sovereignty of Quebec, and he's talking about holding a referendum in the first term of a PQ government should that government wind up winning power. And the crazy thing about PSPP, even though we have almost 2 years left before we finally get down to settling conclusions, is that I never saw a guy, and I think this is his real talent, I think this explains all the success he's enjoyed, I never saw a guy more capable of uttering the most nonsensical things in the most common sense way. Yeah. He sounds exactly that he knows what he's talking about. He's saying, and I've listened to some other clips from that press conference. He's saying this is not remarkable. We've been saying this from day one, and he has been saying this from day one. And he's studiously avoiding the whole idea that the sovereignty option, which is the raison d'être of his party, is supported by maybe a third of Quebecers. And when you have someone like, Francois Legault being the voice of reason, saying, the fall of 2024 is not when you should be talking about, the independence of Quebec. And I'm sure the vast majority of Quebecers agree with him. But on that, they'd rather listen to PSPP explain the future, explain his policies, than listen to Francois Legault, who, whether you like it or not, is the most detested politician in Quebec.
Yet, interestingly enough, most detested politician, poll shows that, but then the poll over party popularity shows that the PQ has gone down and the CAQ went up a little bit.
Well, gone down 4 points. They're still well in advance. I think they're down to 31%, which is just on the cusp, really, back in the old days when we had sort of like normal majority governments, which is on the cusp of majority territory. One thing's for sure, the CAQ can kiss its 86-seat supermajority goodbye in the next election, no matter what happens. But here's the real question. I think Quebecers still want that third way. I don't think Francois Legault was elected to office because he was such a great guy and because his party offered so much to Quebec. In fact, a lot of what he's done to Quebec was never in his party platform, certainly not in 2018. But what's happened, Aaron, is we have seen a kind of, a repudiation of the CAQ, but the desire is still there. We don't want to go back to the bad old days. We don't want to go back to separatists versus federalists. And this is why, on the one hand, I think to a certain extent, PSPP, he may have to change gears. He wouldn't be the first PQ leader to have done so. I've said it in the past. But he has got to have a plan B, because the only reason he's enjoying this popularity is he isn't this absolutely irritating, annoying Coalition Avenir Quebec entity, which doesn't seem able to do anything properly. But who's waiting in the wings, Aaron? The Liberals?
Yeah.
I mean, this is crazy. This is absolutely nuts. They even lost a point down to 16. I haven't seen their connection with French voters, but I'm pretty sure the Francophones are still less than 10%. So they are, for all intents and purposes, yes, I know they're having a huge galactic class leadership campaign. They're a fringe party, Aaron. They're, as I've said before, they're the Liberal Party, the West Island of Montreal, and they don't look like they're going to be busting out of that eggshell anytime soon. But this is the problem. Quebecers want something else And right now, they're not getting it from anybody.
I will point out, by the way, maybe this is an indication of things about to change, at least as far as the provincial Liberals are concerned. We will actually have Pablo Rodriguez on the show Monday, which is the first time I think he's done any English media since the day he was announced. So maybe this is the beginning of something, Jim. And I was thinking, as you sort of outlined the CAC's issues here, wouldn't you think that as a Liberal government, you might play on the fact that when you lost that last election, we were sitting on a giant surplus, and now we're sitting on the biggest deficit in Quebec history?
Absolutely. I mean, the trick is the economy front and center. Please spare me any more talk about trying to get Quebec its own constitution. Let the Journal de Montréal cheerleaders for the CAQ hop up and down with that one. Nobody absolutely cares. Fewer people care about that than they do about Quebec separation. The party of the economy, exactly. And the party that's going to turn around and say, we all know you're not better off after 8 years of the CAQ. This is why you'll be better off with the Liberals. That has got to be the message. Will that come? But once again, Aaron, we're presuming Mr. Rodriguez will win the contest. Yeah. We don't know what's going to happen. And we don't get to find out until, wait a second, next summer.
Yeah.
So honestly, Aaron, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you think these guys could use a stage manager?
We shall see. But as I said, maybe this is the beginning of a turnaround. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a little overly optimistic here, but at least it's a step. We'll see where it goes from here. And you're right. He's not even leader of the party yet. But the fact that he's willing to come on and start talking about this, and hopefully the Liberals will start talking more about the economy, and that be a step to kind of revive the party. We'll see.
Well, if they're certainly having that issue handed to them on a silver platter by the CAQ.
Absolutely.
And to a certain extent by the Parti Quebecois. As for the rest, it doesn't matter. Certainly Quebec Solidaire, their position on anything whatsoever is irrelevant, and they may well have just collectively conferenced themselves out of existence in time for the next election. But the Liberals for sure have got to take this ball and run with it. But once again, they had better make it clear that they're interested in the job. And honestly, I'm not getting that vibe at all from this party at the moment.
So I want to go to the question. I know we talked about this yesterday, but it's still being kicked around today. This idea yesterday put forth by Christian Dubé, our health minister, but taking graduating students here, medical students, and saying, hey, either you stay in the public system in Quebec for 5 years, or we're going to start hitting you with massive fines in the neighborhood of hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially a day. The question I asked Jim, and again, it's important to point out, we don't live in a vacuum here. There are other places around the world where they're dealing with similar issues. Some use the carrot approach, some use the stick approach. Quebec seems always ready to use the stick approach. And as I said, I know we mentioned this yesterday, but I'm going to ask the question again today. Is this the right way to go about it? Or, as I said to Aaron Durfel when we spoke earlier, is this really nothing more than smoke and mirrors by the health minister to shift the focus away from all the other problems that are going on right now in healthcare?
Well, I think you're onto something there, because don't forget the other announcement that came out of Christian Dubé today is that they have broadened access to various surgical procedures in private clinics that you don't have to pay for. And when I was talking to one of my colleagues this morning when that story broke, and I said he just ran up the white flag again. In other words, it ain't working. We're not reducing delays for surgeries. And we're not talking about anything particularly elaborate. But up until now, it was just hip and knee replacements and cataracts. Now they're opening it up to various urology procedures, ear, nose, and throat procedures. They're basically saying this thing ain't working. But on top of everything else, Aaron, this is happening on day 2 of Santé Quebec's existence. And I got to tell you, I don't see conspiracies any more than anybody else. But frankly, when people turn around and say the agenda of the CAQ is to essentially completely privatize healthcare in Quebec, you can't wonder if they're on their way to doing that.
All right, and that's where we will leave it. Jim, I thank you. Appreciate it.
Adama.